Anyway, let's talk about how disinformation can rip families apart, because that's a fun topic, right? No, it's not really a fun topic at all. But y'all know that one of my big issues with, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene was the way she harassed David Hogg, trying to argue that, like, a lot of the things that he was involved in was a fucking false flag incident, right? This video is not about Marjorie Taylor Greene, though. We're going to be looking at a website about how QAnon literally tore a fucking family apart. And, yeah, no, that's not fun. It's not a fun thing to deal with, but we're going to be talking about it anyway. Before that, though, we'll have a little bit of a serotonin hit before we get into the actual episode. Self-care is good care. So, from Blue Eagle, we have a version of the character created for Hero Forge, and honestly, this is closer than I was ever able to get on here, Hero Forge. I am awful at using Hero Forge and Eldritch Foundry to get anything accomplished at all. This one was by Blue Eagle, thank you very much. And then from Pernia, who is going to be showing up in the Anime Exposed video, or rather, their work is going to be showing up in the next Anime Exposed video. They said they should be working on anything, but for some reason they came up with Suris' Bizarre Adventure, where they tried to copy some of the odd coloring of the JoJo manga. And honestly, I think at this point, an Owo stand is probably exactly what my character would have. Oh my god. This is wonderful. Now I just want to... If it weren't for copyright, I would totally be playing one of the JoJo themes right now. But copyright is there, and I have not prepared it, so we're not going to do that right now. Anyways, as always, everyone, thank you very much for your fan art submissions. If you want to see your fan art featured in an episode, the best way to do that is dropping it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's get right into this. So, this article was written less than a week ago, July 26th, on Vice News, and it's, "I'm a Parkland shooting survivor. QAnon convinced my dad it was all a hoax." Now, I know that there are people who are incredibly, incredible stands for the free flow of information, and for nothing, and like they're very angry at fact checkers and all this other fun shit. No. Let's maybe talk about why disinformation can literally rip people apart. So, starting with the article, Bill's final semester at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, was already difficult enough. He was part of the final graduating class of survivors of the 2018 shooting, and they had just marked the 3rd anniversary of the day 17 people were killed, 9 of whom were Bill's classmates. But Bill also had to deal with his father's daily accusations that the shooting was a hoax, and that the shooter, Bill, and all his classmates were paid pawns in a grand conspiracy orchestrated by some shadowy force. Now, before I continue forward, how the fuck does your child survive a school shooting and you manage to believe that they were a paid actor? Your kid, your actual human child, you legitimately believe that this person, instead of being traumatized by a real event that really happened, no, you've got to hide behind the, no, shit like this doesn't happen. No, it was all a false flag incident so that the Democrats can take our guns or some shit. And that's what it always ends up being. If you've ever listened to Alex Jones talk about school shootings, it always goes down the same rabbit hole. This is a false flag incident to initiate panic and a response from the public so that they can get rid of guns in the United States, so that the globalists can come take over and you can't save your house with your, I don't know, fucking whatever you happen to own at the time. Probably an AR-15 because you think they're fucking cool. I will be honest, though. AR-15s are cool. I fired a couple of them now. Anyway, point is, that always runs down the same conspiratorial bullshit. Try to rip the gun away from people because the Democrats pay people to do shit, not counting the other stuff that QAnon already argues, which is that Democrats are trying to suck blood out of children because they are some kind of heliocentric vampires. Just QAnon is a giant-ass rabbit hole that believes all kinds of, or that purports all kinds of dumb shit. But let's continue in the article here. Bill had worked hard to get over his survivor's guilt after the shooting, but for the past 5 months, his own father has been triggering it all over again. He'll say stuff like this straight to my face whenever he's drinking. He'll say, "You're a real piece of work to sit there and act like nothing ever happened if it wasn't a hoax. Shame on you for being part of it and putting your family through it too," Bill said in an anonymous post on Reddit last week. So let me get this straight. The idea that somebody might become numb to a situation, and they might be able to return to some sense of normalcy, at least on the surface, is foreign to Bill's father, apparently. Because the reality of the situation is, even soldiers who are in combat zones find little pockets of normalcy where people who don't know any better would probably see this exact same behavior and go, "How can you act like nothing's going on?" Most of them will tell you, "Oh, we know it's all going on," but sitting here worrying about it and groveling about it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do us any good at all. Talk to somebody who's a veteran who's been in a combat zone. You will probably find a similar conversation that has been had at some point, where somebody mentions you act like nothing happened or nothing's happening, and they point out that, well, it's either dissolve into a puddling mess on the ground or be useful. Bill first posted his story on QAnon Casualties, a Reddit thread dedicated to helping family members and friends of QAnon believers. Vice News spoke to the poster and confirmed the author's claims about being a survivor of the school shooting. Bill is not the student's real name, as they only spoke to Vice News on the condition of anonymity, citing concerns about attacks from other members of QAnon forums if his identity were revealed. As is true for many who fell down the QAnon rabbit hole in recent years, Bill's dad's descent coincided with the pandemic. It started a couple months into the pandemic, with the whole anti-lockdown protests, he said. His feelings were so strong it turned into facts for him. So if he didn't like having to wear a mask, it wouldn't matter what the doctors or scientists said. Anything that contradicted his feelings was wrong. So he turned to the internet to find like-minded people, which led him to QAnon. But until January, that was as far as it went. Then Bill's father saw a video of Georgia Rep. God fucking damn it! It always gets back to this bitch! Why does it always get back to her? I wasn't expecting Marjorie Taylor Greene here today. I literally hadn't read this fucking article before starting. It always gets back to this absolute fucking scumbag. Jesus Christ. Okay. Wow, I wasn't aware that Marjorie was literally a triggering mechanism for me now. I know that this person exists as an emotional trigger. That is incredibly good information to have, though I wish I would have had that a little earlier. Bill's father saw a video of Georgia Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene harassing Parkland survivor David Hogg in 2018. I just fucking mentioned that without even realizing it was going to fucking come up here, while he was visiting Washington to advocate for stricter gun control. Greene has repeatedly voiced support for QAnon and claimed the Parkland shooting was a hoax. This woman represents my district. This woman represents me. District 14, this is the person who's supposed to represent me as a politician. I'm gonna go walk into a wood chipper. He's a coward, Greene told her followers. Ever since then, Bill's father has become convinced the shooting his son survived was a so-called false flag event and that the shooter was a radical commie actor. From there, it snowballed into what he is today, believing that the government is able to overthrow an election, then everyone is probably, or everything else is probably a lie as well. Bill is 18, and now that he's graduated high school, he's looking to get out of the toxic situation he finds himself in. He says, I do have options that can have me out before August, which, as of now, I'm planning to do. He says, I've been delaying it because I felt stuck trying to fix my dad. Vaskimir, thank you very much for redeeming your points for the hada, you inappropriately timed monster. Said I could be in Florida represented by Matt Gaetz. I could be. I could be. I really could be. But this person represents me on a much more local level. Over the course of the past 4 years, but in particular since the beginning of the COVID-19 lockdown, the QAnon conspiracy cult has been tearing families apart, and many family members say that their loved ones have been transformed into different people in front of their eyes. Burgundy-colored t-shirts, the color shirt worn by the shooter, make me uncomfortable, and he used to be so understanding that he stopped wearing it around me. That person is completely gone, and I miss him so fucking much. Bill says his relationship with his mother has also suffered. The relationship with my mom is dependent on whether or not my dad is there. Because then it's pretty much all about conspiracy theories, Bill told Vice News. The relationship used to be fine, but deteriorating quickly, especially after telling her that if she doesn't start putting her foot down, I'm leaving with no interest in seeing my dad. But despite the threats to leave home, Bill's mother has not stood up to his dad. It's not really going anywhere because she's too naive to think he'll magically get over wanting to consistently re-traumatize me, and I'm not waiting around for that, Bill told Dice News. Bill also said that he's been unable to talk to any of his fellow survivors about what he's been going through with his father. He says that I've never talked about it with them. As far as I know, he's only held that belief, at least so strongly, since January. Our last semester was difficult enough with February 14th, marking 3 years since the shooting, along with emotions leading up to us being the last class of survivors to graduate. It wasn't, and still isn't, easy to bottle up, but telling them my dad thinks the absolute hell we went through, where 9 of the victims were in our class, is a hoax, is not a pain I want to put on them. It's difficult enough knowing that the belief exists at all. I want you, Loki, thank you very much for redeeming the hydrate. I will gladly hydrate with some soda. But I want you to take a second to consider. Let's say that you are a parent and your child survived a terrible incident like this, right? Let's say that you, as this parent, are convinced that your child is lying, that these terrible things happened. Let me tell you some of the things that I dealt with growing up that had my parent just simply not believed me on, that probably would have led me to never speak about any traumatizing event ever again.
Never look a tulip in the eye.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that name. We don't idolize rapists here. Anyway, one of the first experiences I had with trauma like this was being held up to the wall in my neighbor's, I guess, content warning, trigger warning for those who don't like violence, but being held up to the wall in my neighbor's house. I had 2 friends that lived, or I had 3 friends that lived right next to me. And after this event, I carried none of them as friends. One of them had moved out by this point. I was like 6 years old, but they had an older friend over. I guess they might have been 11 or 12. Old for me when I was 6. And for some reason, they all thought it would be a funny joke to take a butcher knife from the kitchen and put it up to my neck and then pin me to a wall and see how much I squirmed as a 6-year-old. That was a fucking terrifying event, and I never got over it. There was never a point in time where I could look at the people who lived in that house anymore as anything other than people who had tried to do something terrible to me. Thanks, WhatsApp. Definitely wanted that. I managed to get out of that situation because I guess that the intent was never to kill me. It was just to hurt me, just to see how much I would suffer. So by the time I got out, which the most I can remember of being able to was literally like kicking myself down and just slipping out the door as fast as I could, because it was only one person. It wasn't like I was being held down by everybody who was there. It was just the one person who I did not know who had decided to go grab a butcher knife. This was one event. This is not counting another event where another person who I knew back when I was 9 years old decided that aiming his dad's shotgun at me would be a fun and exciting thing to do, and pulling the trigger. Now, luckily, the shotgun wasn't loaded, but there was no way that a fellow 10-year-old, 11-year-old child was not going to know how to properly check that weapon to see if it was loaded. You never do that shit. But these are all kids. Kids are dicks. Kids do stupid shit. But these are events that have never left me. There's not a point in my life where I can just look back at these things and go, yeah, that was okay. Now imagine if after communicating those events to my parents, they just said, yeah, that didn't happen. You didn't experience that. How incentivized would I be to communicate literally anything to them ever again? Like, there's not a point in time going forward where I would be able to look at those parents and honestly say, I can be honest with them. Because I wouldn't be able to. Bill, in this article, is dealing with that right now. There's never going to be a point in time where he's going to be able to look at his mom, at his dad, and ever think, yeah, these are people who are on my side. Yeah, these are people who are going to root for me. There is never a point in time where this is going to occur to him ever again after this point, very likely. At this point, Bill has little hope in ever seeing his father return to the person he was before he became obsessed with Qanon conspiracy theories. And even if he did, too much has happened to ever repair their relationship. He'll stop on his own, because there are always new theories and goalposts, or he'll never stop on his own, because there are always new theories and goalposts being moved, Bill said. I don't know how to help someone that far gone. My guess is restricted access to the internet and lots of therapy. But even if there was hope he'd eventually snap out of it, it wouldn't change my mind on never wanting to see him again. So it really doesn't matter anymore. Which, of course, is the same conclusion that I just reached. This is a relationship that is so thoroughly and permanently damaged that it cannot be repaired anytime soon. And the likelihood of it getting repaired is so astronomically low that it's astounding. Conspiracy theories can be a fun pastime. They can be something that you sit down and talk with your friends around, a couple of drinks, and just, try to figure out, hey, how did the magic bullet theory really come to be? Like, doing all that shit. You can do that. You can do that. But as soon as it moves from little hobby of discussion, little topic of inquiry, to this is your firmly held belief, no. This rips families apart. This hurts people. Real people. A man is thoroughly convinced that his son was a crisis actor because some random asshole on the internet decided to make up that theory, and now here we are. But I guess this is where I have to hand it off to you guys. Have you ever dealt with something like this? Do you have family members that fell down these conspiracy rabbit holes? Do you have people that legitimately believe that we had a fraudulent election and that Democrats are trying to suck blood out of children? Do you have people who believe in Pizzagate still? I want to know in the comments section below. And honestly, vent it out. If you're fine talking about it publicly, vent it out there. I see like 90% of what goes on in the comment section, even if I don't respond to everything. With that said, though, as always, everyone, thank you for the view. Thank you for being here. If you want to support the channel and what I do, there's many ways to do it in the description below. And as always, everyone, call me Coral. Thank you for the follow, and insert end of video tagline here.